Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Adam Blain, who's a wealth and retirement advisor with AAA Life Solutions, and we'll be talking about the retirement mountain. Adam, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
You know, I'm excited to talk to you about this series of topics because they're so relevant, and retirement and, I'll get to that later, but later needs to be a lot sooner than many people think. So I want to get your thoughts on how you're serving your clients in this realm. But before we dive into that, give us a little bit of your background and story, and how did you get into the industry?
Yeah, so I've always had a desire to help people. Growing up, I wanted to jump from careers to careers that I thought I'd want to do, but it was mostly in the gear of trying to help people. First, I wanted to be a doctor, and then I got to college and decided science wasn't my forte. Exactly. I mean, can't pass chemistry. Yeah. Why be a doctor? Why keep struggling that way? So, and then I really fell in love with law enforcement. Wanted to be a federal agent, and do all that. It was really fun. Got married, found the love of my life, and she wasn't too thrilled about me pursuing that passion or pursuing that career. And so I found something else and fell in love with financial services, more specifically helping people in the retirement space, in distribution. A lot of people think about, financial services is all about how can I grow my accounts and make me money, but really they don't think about retirement, living on what you had saved. That space really isn't served very well. And I found that my services can really help those people and really make an impact on their lives and making sure that they live the lifestyle that they've created over the many years of living, and making sure that continues throughout retirement. So that's what I find a passion in right now. So that's what I love to do.
You know, it's always fun when something comes clear to you, and then it's so unclear to other people. And when you can bring that together and teach and educate and help, you didn't say, I wanted to get out of law enforcement to make $1 billion gazillion dollars. You said, I want to help people. And that's so huge. And I know today we're talking about the retirement mountain. Why do you say that saving is only half the climb? Why is retirement kind of like climbing a mountain?
Yeah. So, I like this analogy of a picture. So picture this: you've trained for years, you've packed your gear, and finally you're going to reach the summit of the mountain, retirement, right? Most people think that's the end. I'm going to kick back, live my life. But if you ask any mountaineer, that is only half the problem. I mean, they got to get back down the mountain, right? That's the hardest part. Retirement works the same way. The climb up, the working years, is all about accumulation. You're saving, investing, and building momentum. But when you retire, everything changes. Now you have to come down the mountain, and that's when things get a little risky. In real life, retirees face different dangers on the descent down, like inflation right now. I mean, that seems to be the topic. At least it was last year, running into this year. Market volatility, big time right now with all the tariffs, rising healthcare costs and longevity risks. It just takes different tools and a mindset than when you are going up in order to get you back down safely. You need a distribution strategy. You need to control your pace, watch your footings, and avoid hazards as you come down. Or financial gravity will eventually just pull your retirement plan all apart. I mean, just like gravity, if you make that wrong slip on coming down a mountain, you're just falling right down it. So, exact same way that can happen with retirement.
It almost gives me the word picture of the struggle and striving, getting up the mountain is like accumulating, like building and growing your money. At the top is retirement. A lot of people view the top as retirement, but you're saying the top is just one part of it. But then you've got to figure out, okay, well, now I've accumulated this. Is it enough? Will it last through to and through retirement, because these days, one of the risks, I know that you mentioned, inflation and things like that, but I would even say that one of the risk factors would be living a great life. We're taking better care of ourselves. We're living longer these days. Back in the 50s and 60s, let's say, the life expectancy was a lot less than now. So your retirement money didn't need to last as long. Today, that's a big risk, right? That needs to be planned for.
Exactly. I mean, retirement back then was probably what, 15 years maybe? 20 years max. Now it's going 30 almost. I mean, I've talked to a number of people who are still taking care of parents who are 100 plus. I mean, that's
Wow.
retirement of 40 years, roughly. I mean, that's a while. And making that million, $2 million, maybe even less than a million last the rest of your life. How do you do that during that amount of time?
Yeah, and I think that there are some things and decisions that you can make to plug up some of those holes you can never eliminate. You think
Mhm.
about, oh, well, inflation, we don't have control over that.
No.
Market volatility, we can't control that. We can put some things in place to mitigate and just make sure there is as little impact to our retirement portfolio as possible. But talk a little bit about some of the ways you guide your clients to kind of shore up some protection against the things we cannot control, like inflation, market volatility, medical cost, things like that. We don't control the cost of, medicines, prescriptions, health plans, things like that.
Basically, you got to segregate your money, keep it in different, I like to call buckets. Okay. Um, um, for instance, the first bucket, we usually make it very short. It's very liquid. I mean, liquid meaning I can get my hand on that cash fast. This bucket's for immediate
Mm-hmm.
income. It's conservative. Might have it in CDs, money market, cash. And then the next bucket is more midterm, where we make it last 3 to 10 years with moderate growth. Um, where we are taking a little bit more risk, but still possibly also preserving our principal or capital we put in those investments. And then we have longer term growth where we take a little bit more risk, and we make that money last for down the road. We're trying to aggressively kind of grow that money. So each of these buckets serves a purpose, and kind of think of them like ropes or anchors on your descent down the mountain. We also build guardrails such as income floors. So when retirees are retired, we're not changing their lifestyle. So with these income floors,
Mm-hmm.
we're able to guarantee that they'll have that income for that, or that lifestyle, on that amount of income for the rest of their lives. So it doesn't impact their lifestyle going forward.
I think the lifestyle is a huge aspect that people get wrong. And you as an advisor tend to almost be like a life coach of sorts. You're sitting down going, tell me what retirement looks like to you. And maybe if you ask 10 people, you'll get 10 different answers like, oh, well, I want to whatever. Maybe it's like the idea of retirement and sitting back and playing golf all day long would just bore the daylights out of me. Maybe someone would go, I just want to start that business that I've always wanted to start. Or maybe I want to get more into philanthropy or working with a nonprofit or a charity or whatever that looks like. And I would say or ask you, when you sit down with some clients and they start talking about their future and what a retirement looks like, and, then you're layering in what we just mentioned about the time frame. Is this going to be 10 years, 15, 20, 30, whatever the time frame is? Well, all of a sudden now, the money they think they need per month to maintain their lifestyle might be too little, because it's like, you know what? You've retired from your job. You're not working the 40 hours a week or more. Now you have more time to spend and travel. And so you might think you need X, but in reality, you just mentioned you want to do this and do this and do this. That might take a whole lot more. What are some of the things that you're doing to help really bring that to light for people so they realize that you really want to zero in on the right lifestyle to make sure that that income is there guaranteed?
Yeah. So, I mean, just like you had mentioned, we are kind of like a life coach in ways
Mm-hmm.
for retirement, because people think that when I retire, I'm going to play golf, fish, do XYZ. But I mean, you can only play so much golf. You can only fish so much, right? Before it gets boring. I mean, if I go ahead and play golf every day for a month straight, I'm probably pretty bored of it, to tell you the truth. So, I mean, a lot of times with people, I try to tell them, it's like, hey, for the next 30 years, what are you going to do? What do you want to do for these next 5 to 10 years? have you ever thought of a business? Because one of the things that you're going to need, and we'll talk about this later, is with taxes. I mean, you've lost a lot of your deductions by the time you come retirement. So maybe
Yeah.
starting a business and finding that love that passion you've never been able to follow before. How can you turn that into a business? And that could also save your retirement with tax deductions out of that business. So different strategies like that could also help them in retirement as well, especially finding that. And then I find that also when someone has a passion or a drive to wake up every morning, besides just golf or whatever, um, they last longer, they live longer, they have better health
Yep.
in general during that retirement.
I think that there's actually statistics to support that. I've heard even statistics like the most amount of heart attacks happen on Sunday night or Monday morning because they're like dreading going to work. And
Yeah.
also there's a lot of lifespan, negative lifespan that happens after someone retires because you get up and go to work and you're part of a team or doing whatever you're doing. And all of a sudden that's gone and you're going, what should I do? So if you don't plan the right way, you will experience things that aren't necessarily financial. But I think that this is a great point to bring up related to the life coach aspect. What are some things you prepare your clients for that descent down, so to speak, related to the emotional side of retirement that, we got the money there, but here's some things that you might not have thought about.
That is a good question. I mean, thinking about life, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want to do with the rest of your life? I mean, a lot of people think, especially when they're going up that descent, it looks magical, looks great. Um, and they're looking forward to that day when they don't necessarily have to work. But really, work is what also kind of drives us as a nation a little bit
Yeah.
as well. That just kind of keeps us in our blood flowing through us, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
Gives us a sense of purpose. I just see so many retirees early. I mean, everybody wants to retire early. It seems like the retirement age was 67, 65. I've talked to a lot of people that are 62, 60, and they want to retire now.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's like, what are you going to do? And putting that in their head, in their mind, okay, start getting them thinking, what is my life going to look like? What do I need to do after I quit this job? I know you're unhappy in this job right now. Maybe that's why it's driving you to wanting to retire now. But what is something that you have a passion for that you could probably take less income for because you don't need it anymore because you've saved and amassed all this stuff? What can you do to give you purpose of life? So
Yeah. Huge. Yeah. So what do you think and how do you advise your clients that are, really getting closer to the retirement age to plan for healthcare costs and long-term care, things like that? Because when we think about, the analogy of the bucket, you've got your money in the bucket, but when holes are there, money's flowing out, and healthcare cost, money can flow out. Long-term care, money can flow out. What are some ways that people should be approaching those two risks?
yeah, there's a lot of things out there. Long-term care insurance. Not a huge fan of it, but there's a lot of different ways you can get it with no additional costs. Where you can double your income in the event of any of those things that come up that would take you out. Where if you can't perform any two of the six assisted daily living activities like feeding yourself or mobility or bathing and stuff like that, where you can double your income for 5 years or so, and it'll help pay for someone to come into your house to help you take care of those things. Um, and then there's making sure that you have the decent health insurance plan as well to help kind of plug those. A lot of people, when you talk about Medicare, think about only a supplement versus maybe a Medicare Advantage plan, which is always going to be a little bit cheaper than probably the supplement. But cheaper doesn't always mean down the road that it's always the best for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of weighing your options on some of those things when it comes to healthcare. But it's expensive. I think healthcare costs. I read a statistic the other day that a couple in retirement would spend for healthcare alone about $250,000 over the course of that 20 to 30 years of retirement. I mean, that's expensive.
Wow.
That could be a big chunk of your retirement if you don't plan it correctly on that. And that's not
Yeah, for
including
sure.
long-term care. Which on top of that, what is that? What, $15,000-$20,000 a month,
I've heard those
roughly?
horror stories, and mentioning statistics, isn't it a very, very high statistical chance that people will need some type of long-term care?
Oh yeah. Was it a couple living? It's about 70% chance, I think. One of the two.
I think I've heard that number. Yeah, that
Yeah.
literal number somewhere in the 70s. And if that's accurate, which, even if it's not accurate, anything above 50, that's a pretty big chance. And if the numbers are 5, 10, 15, whatever thousand per month, that's a big hole in that bucket to plug up that can, if you're thinking about how much money do I need to retire? Well, if you're focused on that number, if there's money flowing out the backside of that, you're not getting to that number any sooner. So making sure that you are preparing for that, given those costs, that's huge.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happens when people don't have a guide for their quote unquote descent down the mountain? Because like we've said, getting to the top is not retirement. Getting to the top is just a stopping point. You still got to get down it, which is the making sure that your money lasts through retirement, making sure your money goes to the right, heirs for that legacy planning in the right tax favored way. What if someone just tries to Google it or do it on their own, or I've got this? What are some of those things to keep in mind? And then can you share an example of a client that you've worked with to kind of navigate their way up and down the mountain? And what were some of the key points that we can take away from that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, frankly, just like you mentioned it, I mean, they're winging it, piecemealing it together, trying to do it through YouTube, or, I mean, you can practically do anything off YouTube, right?
Yep.
Or they're Googling it, and it rarely ends well. I mean, rarely. Some people are overspending early, thinking I've worked hard, I deserve this and that. I'm buying this lakeside house, I'm buying this RV. Others are paralyzed by fear and anxiety, and they underspend, which could be detrimental in the future with taxes and not planning correctly with that. So they're living like they're broke, or even when they've saved well. I see people work extra years they didn't need to, or those who retire too early without knowing the risks. So without a guide, you can't really see the cliffs ahead. Taxes, market downturns, healthcare expenses, or even the death of a spouse can really. What are you
Sure.
going to do when that comes up? Or what is that going to do to my portfolio? Or even how is retirement going to look differently at that point? And unfortunately, many financial professionals only focus on the accumulation side.
Yeah.
They help to get their clients get up the mountain, but they kind of leave them at the top because they think they've arrived, or they don't know as a guide how to get them back down and how to get them up
Interesting.
there, but they can't get them down the mountain. So that's why
Yeah,
I
the
focus on
advisor
that part.
gets the chopper to pick them up off the top of the mountain and waves to the client, figuratively. Yeah.
Good luck.
Wow. Yeah. Really interesting. Really a good analogy, because once you've accumulated, you need to decumulate to live, to survive through retirement, and to pass on to that legacy. So there's a whole other side of that equation. So can you think of an example of a client, without mentioning details or names, but,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
scenarios?
Yeah. So for instance, I had a lady come in a couple of months ago. Single lady. She's 70. She has $1.4 million, mostly in retirement, IRA, 401k accounts. But living on kind of the boring side because she's got fear. She doesn't necessarily need all that income, but she's amassed quite a bit. Her husband died pretty young at 45. So she's been a widow for some time, and she had amassed this much. She kind of lives on little, but showing her what is going to happen around the corner at age 73 if she doesn't start spending some, start living,
Mhm.
start taking some of that income. I mean, taxes are going to get astronomical for her when those required minimum distributions come about. Um, I was able to show her that she would be paying an effective tax rate of anywhere from 20 to almost 30% towards later on in life. And she's got great genes. I mean, her parents are still living at 97, 96,
Wow.
98. She's going to live probably for a while. She's fit, active. So she has a good chance that where she's going to be paying a lot in effective taxes. And when I talk about effective taxes, that's the total tax you pay, not just your tax bracket. So when I like looking at effective tax rates versus what kind of tax bracket someone is in, because I want to know overall how much taxes is someone going to pay. And that's a big chunk of someone's money if you're paying 20 to 30%. So I was able to show her that if you start spending some money now, start taking that out while also still having a little bit of growth, that we can stabilize her retirement into the future and not let taxes eat up everything that she has worked hard to amass, and still be able to live her retirement comfortably and have a little more fun along the way instead of just penny pinching out of fear and anxiety.
And probably when you ran that scenario and analysis, it was eye-opening because as you were describing it, it made me think, okay, if I was her and just kind of pinching the pennies and living, meager and being told, okay, if you keep doing this, you're going to potentially have to pay more taxes. So lighten up a little, live a little, enjoy a little, and it's going to either be the same as you were expecting or even better. But yet right now, today, you're living better and enjoying things. You don't need to constrict and feel that. And to me, that would feel like a big relief off of your shoulders, right?
Yeah, most definitely. And the interesting thing is that she had brought up taxes to her current advisor last year, 2 years ago, she said, and he kind of blew her off saying, "Oh, you're fine," not really giving her a detailed picture of what that would look like into the future. It's kind of like the classic scenario of what I just pointed out, was that he got her to the top.
He choppered off the top of the mountain.
Yeah, then he just kind of let her go and
Yep.
not
Wow.
addressing those questions and how to get back down and what's that going to look like coming down, where she's already got the anxiety because she's a single lady. She has no one to rely on besides him. So, I mean, that's a classic, and it happens all the time. So scenarios like that, or I've come across scenarios as well where someone's spending too much, way too much in retirement because they think they deserve it.
Yeah.
I've had a lady come in where she's bought a lake house. She had $1 million. Oh, I'm rich. I got $1 million. I'm in retirement. She went and bought a lake house. She paid cash for that. She laid down $250,000. She bought an RV. She's bought trucks for her grandchildren.
Wow.
After about 6-7 years, she was down to like $250,000.
Ooh.
After that, after the $1 million, I'm like, what you been doing? Type thing. So it's that mentality as well. You got to change it.
Goes both ways. Yeah. You've got to keep that end in mind to either tap the brakes or to lighten up, like we've said in both of those scenarios. Those are really great. Well, Adam, it's been really great chatting with you about this. If someone is interested in maybe getting a second opinion and seeing what it looks like for them to get up and down that mountain, what's the best way they can learn more and reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, you can definitely reach us at our phone number. It's 901-508-2433. Always can look us up at AAALifesolutions.com. There you'll be able to find me along with my partner, Renee Kennedy, and we're able to learn more about us. We have a few books up there as well, which you can download or request, and we can mail them to you as well to learn more about different techniques and retirements and stuff like that.
Excellent. Well, Adam, thank you so much for coming on. It's a great pleasure talking with you.
No problem. Thanks, Mike.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.